Well, I suppose really just by way of introduction, I'm going to look at meshes and editing meshes, and I'm looking at it in the way that I do it. My object in having to edit an STL file is for my own use, and therefore I don't necessarily do it in the correct Fusion way, and would have far too many yellow boxes in my timeline than Malcolm would have liked if he'd have been on here. And I'm gonna show you how I do it, and why I do it in this way, because generally I think if you've picked up an STL file from Thingiverse or anywhere else, then you might want to do some slight alteration to make it fit your need. If you end up wanting to design the whole thing from scratch, then you should be starting from scratch in the first place. So what I'm looking at, and I think this will be over 2 parts rather than 1 part, because I've looked at meshes and it can go very deep, and I'm afraid that if I went that far, then I'll lose myself, never mind some of you. So I thought I'd start off with some simple stuff, and then through questions we'll see where we go from there. But first of all, maybe an explanation as to what a mesh file is. They're required for 3D printing, and there's a number of mesh file formats. The most common ones that we will come across is STL and OBJ. Now, from your point of view, there's no real difference, but the OBJ can store more information, such as textures, materials, which an STL can't. But if you're doing home printing of your own designs, then really, you know, I stick with STL, but it's a personal choice. Many will favor OBJ files, but for what I do, I find no advantage. Now, what is a mesh file? It's a 3D object representation consisting of a collection of vertices and polygons. The 3D object representation can be a polygon mesh, which consists of a collection of vertices and polygons that define the shape of the object. So I'm going to share my screen and first of all just show you what I mean by that. So the reason for this purely is just to explain what an STL files end up doing. So the easiest way for me to do this is to pull up the print material, highlight it, and go into refinements, and I'll put on the preview. Now that's what is sent to your printer. Printer's a bit like a plotter, but what it does, it sends a large collection of triangles, if you like, triangular faces, and these can be altered. Now I've got this one on a low setting, so the triangles are quite large. Now because this has got a great deal of curved surface, and I might want to get it as good as possible, then I can change the refinement over here from low to high, and you can see in a moment the difference. The triangles are a lot smaller. So that's a mesh file. It's the smaller the triangles, the polygons, if you like, the better quality print you're going to get. But of course, it's a trade-off between file size and print time, because if you've got very small polygons, whilst the file size may not worry us on our computers these days, what could worry us is an increase in print time. So really, as I think I've mentioned before with CAD design, I think it's important to work out what it is you want before you start drawing, and everything leads to that, including the quality of the drawing that you do. And I've mentioned the quality of CAD drawings before, as to how much quality you want from the point of view of what you want to print, and the same ends up with this. So when you generate your STL file in Fusion, you are able to change it. Now if I was just drawing a cube, then I would probably set this down to the low mark, which would be at the smallest number of triangles. So that's by way of explanation as to what an ST file is. Now what we need to look at tonight, and I'm going to look at it as easily as I can, which hopefully will get you started, is editing an STL file. Now, one of the things, if you have, I've got on my layout, I've done some prints of horses for drawing carts. If you want to edit something of that nature, then really doing it in Fusion is hopeless. You should be using something like Blender. Really, I think STL files in Fusion, you need to have fairly tidy, what I would call mechanical parts rather than figures and animals, because the curves you'll have trouble with. So how do we go about? Well, first of all, let's get a new worksheet. And the first thing is to insert the STL file. Let me just get some window space. So up here on the insert there, and you come down to insert mesh. And that inserts an existing STL, OBJ or 3ms file as a mesh body into that document. And I've got them on my computer. So it's select from my computer there, and I'm already in the directory, and I'm going to load in this one here, which is a servo mount, and you can see the shape of it there. So we'll load that in. Now we have on the side over here, we have a means here to center it about its origin and to also ground it if we need to. I tend not to bother with those, but you can if you want to. And also making sure up here that you're in the right scale. That could be a bit difficult with, I think the only way you could do that with things off Thingiverse is to use one of the scales and then measure it with the measuring tool to see if you've brought it in at the right unit types. But since this is one of my own STLs, then millimeters is fine. So we click OK, and there it is in there. We can look around it, etc. So we might want to increase this back plate to make it thicker because we're not happy with how thick it is. So normally you would hit the extrude button and you would come down and select the face, but you can't select the face. And the reason why you can't select the face is because this is made up of triangles. So what we can do, if we move the cursor over, it's a solid block. Now it's inserted the mesh, but what we need to do is to make that editable, if you like. So the next stage is to highlight it, go into the mesh menu at the top here, into modify, and down to convert mesh. And we click that one. Now over on here, we have the body is selected. We have an operation, parametric or base feature. Parametric allows you to retain the information on your timeline. Base feature doesn't. If you're just doing editing and you want to print it, then you can use base feature. I tend to leave it in parametric because it doesn't make any difference to what I do. And then you've got a method of faceted or prismatic. Prismatic is only available with the paid version of Fusion Pro, so we'll forget it and we'll just take the default. So we've got it highlighted, we've got that up, and we press OK. And it's changed it. It doesn't look as though it's changed it, but now, if I go onto here, you can see the triangles being highlighted. So basically what we're saying is that face is made up of all those triangles. So now what I could do is to go back to solid, hit extrude, and extrude that one. And extrude that one, and so on. Which is a bit laborious. So how do I extrude that face? Well, it's very easy. I select a triangle, and I hit the delete key on the computer. And you can see now I've got one face. It's as simple as that. And then we can extrude that face however we want. So let's just look at another one. Let's get things in shape. If we looked at this face again, that's one face because it's come on with that one. we come in here, you can see here on this face we got a whole pile of triangles. And as I say, if we highlight the one and we try and enlarge it or alter it, we can't do it. On the other hand, if we hit one of the triangles and delete it, that face becomes one face that we can then edit with our normal tools. Now we want to make some adjustments to this maybe. So let's have a look at what sort of adjustments we can make. Let's suppose for the sake of argument we want to widen this gap. But we've got to get rid of these curves first. Now if it was a normal drawing, as you know, you could highlight the curve and delete it. But you can't because the curve is made up of all these triangles. Now, what you can't do is you can't highlight one and delete it like you can on a flat surface. On a flat surface, we can highlight the one, delete it, and the whole surface becomes one. You can't do that on the curve unless you select them all. What you can do is you can put your and draw up to include the curve. Now this is where you have to do a bit, not a bit of trial and error, but you've got to get used to it. The only thing I can say with meshes and editing them is you've got to find your own way to a degree. So if I let go now, it's highlighted the entire workpiece, which I don't want. If however I come up here and do that, it's highlighted the curve and the side, but I only want the curve. So if I move in here and I get the curve, now I can then click on that one to delete it. Sorry, wrong way round. Let's do that again. Hold the shift key down and delete it, and then I can hit the delete key and the curve's gone, and I've got the square that I can do what I like with. Either I can then highlight this one and extend it out and then put the curve back on if I want it back on. So you can see when I selected that curve, you sometimes have to play about, because if I do that again on the other side, we go, whoops, let's go on to select mode, window, the whole drawing again. And if I come up to say there, and there I've got the curve only plus a bit at the top. Hold the shift key down and take them out. They're not going to come out, are they? So the easiest way on that one now is to say, okay, let's make that surface one. So I click on that one, delete it. That makes that a whole surface. That means now I should be able to when we get there, let's start. So let's make that one into a surface as well. You can see what I mean. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. It's where you click it on, then you can start deleting it. Now let's have a look at something a little bit easier. If I wanted to amend this slot, you can see again I've got two triangles in it. I want to make the slot a bit longer. And I've got two triangles there. Highlight, delete. I've then got a solid one that I can then move wherever I want to move it to. Okay. Next thing I want to have a look at is this here. Where are we? Whoops, wrong way. I really need some longer slots in here than what we've got. These are the slots that would take a micro switch for the stepper motor, the servo rather, that goes in the holder. So what I can do here is, first of all, again, I've got two triangles. Hit one, delete it. I can then highlight that, use the extrude tool, click on that and pull it out to there. Now I have to alter this. Again, I've got all these surfaces. Click on one, delete it. That will change it to one surface only. I can then use that, click on that, and I can then draw on this one. So what I can now do is extend this slot out. Now I don't extend the slot, I add another one in there if you like. So the way I would do that is to go into there, and of course I've lost my slots now. So what I need to do, and the easiest way of doing this, is to come down, get my sketch on that plane, then use the project one to project P, and then I've put the slots now on that thing on the plane. Get rid of the bodies, and I've got it there. Now what I can do is to go front on, and then the next stage that I would do is to go in here and draw a line, a construction line from that point to that point. Then I can go and find the center point of that there, draw a construction line out here however far I want it to go. And then you can go and use your slot command, which is, where's it gone there? And I'm going to go overall slot, say from there. So I want to go from there and come in here anywhere. Oops, it doesn't matter how far you come in here. Say there. And then come up, and you'll notice now when I get to the purple, it will snap to the purple, like so. Finish the sketch. Now all I got to do is highlight, whoops, wrong one. Highlight that one, extrude it out, turn off my sketches, and I've neatly made that slot longer. I mean, you can do it other ways in the sense of, you know, what you could do, however, you know, if you wanted to, you could again go onto here, onto that face which we're on, and you could quite roughly draw a square, come out, put the sketches back on, click on the square, extrude it to the back, didn't extrude, did it? Let's go again. I went the wrong way. Sorry, what? I'm catching all the wrong one. I need to catch all that one and the center one, of course. And then take them back. Where are we? Lost it. Onto there. Make a join. And then when I get back there again, let's go back. Tweak off the sketches, and the slot has been filled in, and then you can just put another slot on top of it, drill a hole, whatever. So what I'm saying to you is, in this example here, you can either extend the slot or get rid of it and draw something completely fresh there. So it enables you to fill in holes, etc. Now if we were to say want to get rid of, or make, instead of mounting it this way, mount it down this way, then we've got these bases here. So now you can go onto there because we made it one, and you can go in there, and again, I'm not doing dimensions on this one. You can put your hole in there, sketches on, highlight it, push it through, put a taper on it, in the same way you can make these smaller or bigger. In the same way I've done the slot, you can go on there, create another sketch by projecting the face onto your sketch plane, and then either filling the hole in and making a new one, or putting, if you like, a sort of bush in there which will fill it in. In the case of these holes, what I would do with those is to is to go from this side, and on a sketch on here you can see this is still in triangles, so I can't put a sketch on it. What I would do is highlight one, and then I got one sheet. You can then go and put a sketch on there, which we will lose because we've got this thing in the way. And what you can then do, of course, is draw on there a circle, which is the same as this outer one, and just join it through the other side and fill the whole thing in completely. Going back to getting rid of curves again, we've got one at the bottom here, and as I said, if you just do it again, we've got those there. Finish the sketch a moment. And sometimes it doesn't always work, as you can see, and if you change the angle it can make a difference too. It's picking up everything on that one, and that's where you've got to be a little bit. There you go. You see, I can't work out any pattern in this yet. Although I started on the white area there and the white area there, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then you hit delete and you've got your square corner that you can do what you like with. So that's my brief introduction to this. Partly I think because this is what I would say a typical example, if that you might have you might down something from Thingiverse, and you might, for example, you might make this and find that your batch of servos have got a slightly thicker lip down here, so you might have to make this thicker. So it's delete, and then you've got one face, and then you can make the slot wider to suit your particular stepper motor or servo if it doesn't fit this particular mount. And the same on the end there where the wires come out. Your wires might come out in a different place, so you might want to move this over to one edge or even to the side. So what I wanted to look at tonight was taking the sort of things that you might find online that require some editing to suit what you want. I'm not looking at finding things online that you want to remake totally. If you want to remake it totally, you start from a clean piece of paper and draw it yourself anyway. And generally, I think editing meshes can get awkward, it can get difficult. And I think a lot of others don't want to be in a state where you're spending lots of time. You want to do modeling. And therefore you might want to adjust the model. I had this occasion with some dustbins that I made. I had dustbins, the old metal type, where the lids had a flute in them, and they were lovely. I was really pleased with them. And I accidentally deleted the CAD file for it. And I still had the STL file, so I was able to put the STL file back in again and edit the lid of a different one to what I wanted. If you're doing a lot of editing on an STL, then you should be asking yourself, should I be redrawing this from scratch rather than editing the STL?